Good morning. Today is Thursday, May 5th. Excuse me. Let's start that over. Good morning. Today is Thursday, June 5th, 2025. Just want to note the news from this morning, and that is the return of the bodies of Gadi and Judy Haggai. They were taken captive by Hamas terrorists on October 7th and murdered and held for over 600 days. Both of them had American citizenship, and Judy also had Canadian citizenship in addition to Israeli citizenship. Gadi was 72 years old. They were married to each other. Judy was 70 years old. They had 4 children, 7 grandchildren. And their family thanks, and certainly we thank the members of the IDF and the security forces, intelligence forces, that were able to locate and retrieve these bodies and to bring some type of closure and at the very least the mitzvah of burial to their family and to their community. And we hope, of course, that the rest of the hostages will come home soon. In this week's Torah portion, the Parsha of Nasso, we have the famous passage of Birchat Kohanim, the priestly blessing. One of the most famous prayers, most well-known prayers in all of, well, not just Judaism, but all of human history. And the passage in our Torah portion starts as follows. Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe lemar. God says to Moshe, Daber el Aaron vel banav lemar, speak to Aharon and his sons and tell them, Kosevarchu es bnei Yisrael, this is how you should bless the children of Israel. Emar lahem, say to them the following words, Yivarechecha Hashem yishmerecha, may God bless you and protect you, etc., etc. V'yosem lecha shalom, and may God grant you peace. And this is a mitzvah even today for a Kohen to bless the Jewish people. In Israel, this happens every morning during the morning service, during the davening. Outside of Israel, it happens on Yom Tov. In the synagogues, we had this on the 2 days of Shavuos. And I've spoken before about this idea that an essential part of a Kohen's service to God is to bless the Jewish people and to be a source of blessing for the Jewish people. That's an essential element of anyone serving God. Now, the problem with this passage is that we already have another earlier passage with a mitzvah for Aharon to bless the people. If you remember, a number of weeks ago, back in the 3rd book of the Torah, the book of Vayikra, in the Parsha Shmini, and that is in a passage that is discussing the Kohen's job and the karbanos, the sacrifices. And remember, the Birchat Kohanim was, in the Beis HaMikdash, was part of the offering of the sacrifice. So back in Vayikra, in the Parsha Shmini, the Torah says, excuse me, Vayisa Aaron es yadav el ha'am. Aharon lifted his hands towards the people. Vayivarchem, and he blessed them. But what was the text of the bracha that he said? So in Vayikra, the Torah does not say. It just says he blessed them. Doesn't tell us what blessing it was. The Ramban says that Vayikra was a one-time blessing. God told Aaron to bless the people. He raised his hands to the people and he said a bracha. What was the bracha? I don't know, but it was a one-time bracha. And in our Torah portion, in Bamidbar, in the Parsha of Nasso, this is a mitzvah to do it every day forever. Every day, forever, for all time. And then the Torah gives us the text that should be used, which is different than the text that Aaron used that one time. We have the text here and the mitzvah for a Kohen to bless every day with the text of the famous bracha Birchat Kohanim. That's what the Ramban Nachmanides says. Rashi says no. Rashi says it's all one thing. That Aaron, back in the Parsha of Shmini in the book of Vayikra, said the bracha whose text is in our portion of Nasso in the book of Bamidbar. Yivarechecha Hashem v'yishmerecha, etc. So back in the Parsha of Shmini is the first occurrence of the bracha, and then in our Parsha the Torah supplies the text that was said by Aaron earlier, and commands that it should be not a one-time thing, but every day. And there is a slight support for this opinion of Rashi, because back in Vayikra, the Torah says, Vayisa Aaron es yadav el ha'am. Aaron raised his hands to the people and he blessed them. And this term, Nesias Kapayim, the raising of the hands, is another term that we use for Birchat Kohanim, the priestly blessing. Seems to indicate that the two passages are talking about the same mitzvah, and presumably the same text. But that just begs the following question. Why mention the mitzvah for a Kohen to bless in Parsha Shmini in Vayikra, but only give its text in Nasso in the book of Bamidbar? Why not put them together? The commandment and the text. That would make the most sense. And furthermore, it makes more sense to put it all in Vayikra in the Parsha Shmini, because that is talking about the Kohen and the Karbanos, the sacrifices. So give the mitzvah and give the text together where it belongs in the book of Vayikra. Why include the mitzvah there, but the text here in our Torah portion, where it is completely out of context? The Birchat Kohanim, the priestly blessing, this small passage of 3 verses, has nothing to do with what came before it in this week's parsha, and nothing to do with what comes after it. It appears there's no context. It appears that these 3 verses were just kind of plopped down here for no reason. So I want to suggest a reason. It's not exactly what Rabbi Label Hyman says, but it is inspired by the writing of Rabbi Label Hyman. And what I want to suggest is there's a very big difference between the mood of the book of Vayikra, the 3rd book of the Torah, and the mood of Bamidbar, the 4th book of the Torah, that we began reading last week with the Parsha of Bamidbar, and we continue with this week with the Parsha of Nasso. In the book of Vayikra, in general, with exceptions, but in general, the picture that we see is people are united. Now, yes, it's true. Most of Vayikra is not narratives. There's very little narrative in the book of Vayikra. Most of it is mitzvos. But the assumption is God is commanding the laws of sacrifices and the Mishkan and the laws of the Kohen, and there's no evidence to the contrary. Everybody agrees. Everybody buys in. Everyone accepts this. And the narratives and the mitzvahs that are there also presuppose a certain unity. For example, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your fellow as yourself, is in Vayikra. So again, the mood in general is a mood of unity of the Jewish people. The book of Bamidbar is very different. In the book of Bamidbar, there is an ominous decline in civility and harmony. If this was a movie, you would notice when we get to the book of Bamidbar, the sky gets dark and the music gets tense. Something bad is going to happen. And there are many examples of this. First of all, the narratives in our Torah portion. We have the mitzvah of sota. Now, we've discussed this before. Sota means a woman who is accused by her husband of acting immorally. It's a very strange thing. Yes, we've discussed it, we've tried to explain it, but it's a very strange thing. And it certainly is something that is humiliating. There's this public ceremony in the Beis HaMikdash, and a woman has to drink this water, and either it's a blessing or it's a curse, but whatever it is, it's very strange. It's about disharmony, and it's just a very, very strange thing. And then next we have the mitzvah about a nazir. A nazir is a person who takes upon themselves the commitment for a certain amount of time not to drink wine, not to cut their hair, not to come into contact with a dead body. It's just a very strange thing. Again, we have a person who's acting not normally, not like everybody else. And yes, we've discussed before this, there's this gigantic difference of opinion, and it exists up until today, whether the nazir is a good thing or it's not a good thing, or maybe it's both. But it's strange. It's disharmonious. And next week, in the Parsha Baloscha, it really starts to fall apart. We have the Jews complaining, and then after that we have the Meraglim, the spies, etc., etc. The book of Bamidbar traces the ominous decline of the Jewish people in the desert, the lack of unity, the lack of harmony, the lack of civility. This bracha, the Birchat Kohanim, Yivarechecha Hashem Yishmerecha, ends with the words, V'yasem l'cha shalom, and God should grant you peace. This bracha needs to be here because it is more necessary when problems and challenges are arising to remember the need to work on peace, because of course we ask God to provide peace, but of course we have to work on it ourselves. It doesn't only come from God, it comes from us. And so the mitzvah to bless is in Vayikra where it belongs, because that's a commandment to the Kohen to bless the Jewish people. But God commands that the words of the bracha, what the blessing is, God commands that they be placed here, in the middle of our Torah portion, where they're needed in the book of Bamidbar, when things are not going well. We need to remember the priority we have to give to peace. And I want to suggest to you that this is a very practical lesson for us. You know, I often talk about how we should try to react to a challenge or a crisis. Don't get angry. Don't lose your temper. Don't panic. Stay calm. If you trust in Hashem, then you'll stay calm. You'll understand that there's some plan that Hashem has. You'll be able to weather it. You'll be able to overcome it if you stay calm. And if you lose your temper and if you become hysterical, you're not going to be able to help in any way. So, I've said this, I've discussed this with you many times, and I have to confess to you, I try to live up to what I say, and I try to live up to what I teach, but I do not always succeed, and it is much easier for me to say it than for me to do it. But here's something that works for me. And again, I'm not able to do it all the time, but when I'm able to do it, this is something that works for me. Let's say, which happens pretty frequently, I'm walking into a crisis. I'm walking into a hospital room. I'm walking into Paperman's. I'm walking into a very contentious meeting. I'm walking into a situation that I know is fraught. And what I do, so I'm driving to the place or I'm walking to the place and I have a few minutes. And I try to say to myself, I don't always succeed, but I try to say to myself, in order for me to be helpful to this place where I'm going, to these people or person that I'm going to see? What do I need to do for myself in order to try to be helpful? Well, I need to be calm. Because if I get angry, then I'm not going to help anybody. I need to trust that God has a plan even though I don't see it. Because without that, I have no way of navigating anything. And each situation is different. I may think to myself, I need the ability to try to bring people together, or at least not let them veer further apart than they are. I need to try to somehow bring comfort to a situation or some kind of resolution. Doesn't mean I'm going to succeed, but very often it helps. Very often, when I think to myself in advance, what quality do I need when I walk into that space? Very often it helps. I'm able to then summon it. And that's why the bracha is here. The text of the bracha of Birchat Kohanim is right here in Bamidbar to remind us, if you're entering a situation of contention, of divisiveness, if you're entering a place where the mood is like Bamidbar, not like Vayikra, first focus on peace and let that guide you through. My friends, I wish you a great day, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person.